We'll be diving into the local market here in Portland, Oregon of March of 2023, how the Silicon Valley Bank and the recent news from the Fed has impacted our market. My name is William Singh. I'm a local agent here in Portland, Oregon. When it comes to the federal funds rates, it got increased by 25 basis points. And I want to remind you that the Federal Reserve funds rate is not the same as mortgage rates. Just know that they impact the bonds market, which then impacts the mortgage interest rate. With that, we saw what we were expecting when it came to the Federal Reserve, and we are going to expect that they will raise rates again once or twice more and then stay at that rate until they start seeing inflation come down for the long term. Now, we are all marking our calendars in May to see where that inflation rate is going at this point, but just know that it will most likely be sticky. Now, with that, we're also seeing Silicon Valley Bank having a lot of issues with liquidity. Now, this has caused the mortgage rates to, again, drop a little bit because of this. Now, in the beginning of March, we had rates closer to that 7%, which really put a halt on a lot of home buyers because it became unaffordable. Now, with these events that have happened, we've seen rates drop to the mid-sixes at this point. Now, I want to note, in order to have a more sustainable or more neutral interest rate, we need to be in that 5 to 6%. Now, we have been hovering around that, and once we get down into that, we'll probably see affordability increase at that point. Now, we saw this happen back in February. We had about 2.7 months of inventory that were kind of left over from December, and then in February we saw those numbers drop down to 1.9 months of inventory. And a major reason for that was because of the fact that interest rates did drop, and they got down to the low sixes and even high fives. So something to keep in mind, that once we start seeing interest rates come back down, we'll probably see buyer demand start increasing, and it's already been increasing. And the reality is that a lot of home buyers have accepted the fact that there's going to be a higher interest rate for the time being. Now, if we enter a recession or we hit any other major speed bumps economically, we'll most likely see those interest rates drop, and that would be a great time for a lot of buyers to then refinance at that time once they've secured a home. We'll probably continue to see a level of volatility where we are chasing interest rates because of affordability here in Portland. And especially in those first 2 months of January and February, we saw the affordability increase by quite a bit, and once rates really jumped in March back up to the 7%, we saw the affordability decrease. There is still a large demographic of millennials who are looking to buy in that first-time home buyer range, which is anywhere between that $500,000 to $700,000 in that single-family home space. So keep this in mind and know that we may see prices still appreciate throughout this year, but it might not appreciate quite as much. If you find any of this content helpful, it would be wonderful if you could hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out a ton to help give this information to other people so that way they can make an informed decision. For buyers, you better get ready for a very busy season if you are actively looking. Once we hit these timeframes of April and May, we're going to see a lot of inventory pop up, and know that these houses will probably go a little bit faster because of the time and the season. So with that, keep in mind that you probably have to have a little bit more of aggressive terms, and will most likely be going over list price. With the February numbers, we saw that about 28.7% of homes sold above that list price. And especially if you're in that first-time home buyer range and between that 500 to 700,000, there's going to be a lot more competition. If you get above that, we are even starting to see a lot more competition in those areas as well. So again, expect that and be ready for that, so that way when the house that you love pops up, you'll be able to move on that quickly. We also saw that about 61.2% of listings were off the market within 2 weeks. So we'll probably continue to see that trend increase, and it is a common trend that happens during these next 2 months. For sellers, it is going to be incredibly important for you to make sure that your listing is up to snuff, because you are going to have a lot more competition from other sellers around your area. With inventory the way it is, we will still probably see multiple offer situations, especially if you are in that $500,000 to $700,000 range. But just know, if you are selling above that range, it is good to know that the median days on market is still relatively high when it comes to that price range. So we're still seeing anywhere between 2 to 3 months sometimes, depending on the submarket that you are in. So expect that and be able to make sure that you are able to show that house as much as possible, because especially within those first 2 weeks, it's going to be very important that you get as many people through as possible, because this is usually the best time to get the buyers that you want in there and under contract. And for those sellers who are looking to be contingent, or basically sell their home before they purchase that next house, know that the competition will be a little bit greater during this time frame, and you might want to look into alternatives in terms of making it more competitive when you do the buy side of this. So either using bridge loans, or knowing that you might have to go rent a place for a short period of time. That way you can have that competitive advantage. If not, just know that it will take a little bit of time, and you may have to compete against other offers and have a little bit more aggressive terms to make up for that contingency. Now, switching over to the local data, when it comes to the Portland metro market, we're seeing overall in the Portland metro market that there is an increase in the market action index. The market action index, remember, the higher you go, the more of a seller's market it is, and the lower you go, the more of a buyer's market it is. And at this point, we're definitely much more in a seller's market, but we're definitely not as crazy as 2021. So keep that in mind, and it's definitely been moderated quite a bit. In Milwaukee especially, we've seen a large jump in that market action index. There's a lot of single-family homes that are in that first-time home buyer range, so we've seen a lot of activity in that area as well. Overall, we were also starting to see that this median list price is increasing. The only area where it's not increasing, surprisingly, is Tigard. So we're also, on top of that, seeing median days on markets decrease, and this is more of a lagging indicator, but we'll most likely see these trends continue, where we're seeing the median days on market shrink, the median list price increase, the market action index also increase. And on top of that, the price decreases have also been going down, which means that the sellers are not having to drop their prices quite as much. And as you can see, we're still seeing this inventory relatively constricted. A lot of these numbers are actually going down from the previous month. So keep that in mind. And the only exception to this would be Lake Oswego, and this is primarily due to the demographics. Usually when you have a median list price of $2.1 million, it's going to only apply to a smaller group. So compare that to the Milwaukee area, where the median list price is significantly lower and much closer to what a starter home would look like. If you have any questions about the submarkets, or curious about how to get started in this market, feel free to reach out. I'll make sure to have my contact information down below, and I would love to hear if you have any comments on what your experience has been in the Portland market. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the market, but I'm curious about what your experience has been. I would love it if you could leave a comment down below about what that has been, and I will do my best to make sure that I can respond to that. And if any of this content was helpful, it would be wonderful if you could also hit that like and subscribe button. And thank you so much for watching.